Is 3I/ATLAS coming to Earth? That's the question. Keeping astronomers awake at night after what just happened at Mars completely shattered every prediction we had about this interstellar visitor. Everyone assumed Atlas would pass by Mars and continue its journey through the solar system. Instead, the mysterious object performed maneuvers that should be physically impossible, stopping dead in its tracks and deliberately parking itself in orbit around the red planet. And what it did next has transformed this from a fascinating astronomical discovery into a potential threat scenario. Scientists tracked Atlas approaching Mars at 130,000 miles per hour, fast enough to circle Earth 5 times in a single minute. The flyby was supposed to be routine, quick observations, some data collection, then ATLAS would speed away into the outer solar system. But that's not what happened. Atlas slammed on the brakes. In less than 6 hours, it decelerated from interstellar velocity to a complete stop relative to Mars, then inserted itself into a perfect circular orbit. The energy required for that maneuver equals 3 years of output from every nuclear reactor on Earth combined. Natural objects don't do this. Comets can't stop themselves mid-flight. Asteroids don't execute precision orbital insertions around planets they've never visited before. What we're witnessing isn't astronomy, it's technology. Advanced technology that makes our most sophisticated spacecraft look like Stone Age tools. And here's what has NASA frantically recalculating trajectories. After completing its mission at Mars, Atlas appears to be preparing for departure. Early projections suggest the next stop could be Earth. We might have less than 6 weeks before this object, whatever it really is, arrives in our neighborhood. The question isn't just what happened at Mars anymore. It's what will happen here when ATLAS comes knocking. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter captured the entire event in stunning detail, and the data has left astrophysicists struggling to explain what they're seeing. Atlas approached Mars at its expected velocity of 130,000 miles per hour. Then, at a distance of approximately 50,000 miles from the planet, something activated. The object began emitting an intense blue-white glow from what appeared to be multiple points along its structure. Not the diffuse glow of reflected sunlight, but focused emissions that looked disturbingly like engine burns. A propulsion engineer analyzing the data described the impossibility. The deceleration profile shows constant thrust over a 6-hour period, bleeding velocity at a rate that would require exhaust velocities approaching 10% the speed of light. We don't have propulsion technology that comes remotely close to this, neither does any nation on Earth. This is orders of magnitude beyond our most advanced theoretical concepts. The energy calculations are staggering. To slow an 800-meter object from interstellar velocity to orbital velocity requires approximately 10 to the 20 power joules of energy. For comparison, the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima released about 10 to the 14th power joules. Atlas just demonstrated the equivalent of 1 million nuclear weapons worth of controlled thrust. But it's not just the energy that's impossible, it's the efficiency. Conventional rocket engines waste enormous amounts of energy as heat. The infrared signatures from Atlas during deceleration showed temperatures barely above ambient space levels. Whatever propulsion system it's using operates with near-perfect efficiency, converting almost all input energy directly into thrust. Multiple space agencies tracked the maneuver using different instruments, and all confirmed the same impossible physics. The European Space Agency's Mars Express captured spectroscopic data showing exotic particle emissions, the same strange quarks and muon signatures detected during unexplained events throughout ATLAS's journey. A particle physicist reviewing the data made a disturbing observation. These particle signatures match theoretical predictions for antimatter propulsion systems. If Atlas is using matter-antimatter annihilation for thrust, it's carrying fuel that could theoretically level a continent if it detonated. And it just parked that weapon in orbit around Mars. The deceleration burn wasn't uniform either. Atlas executed a series of precisely timed thrust adjustments compensating for Mars's gravity, solar radiation pressure, and orbital mechanics in real time. The computational requirements for that kind of precision are mind-boggling. It's like threading a needle while riding a motorcycle at highway speeds. As Atlas settled into orbit around Mars, something even stranger began. The object started scanning the planet, systematically, methodically, and with technology that makes our best satellites look primitive. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter detected powerful electromagnetic pulses sweeping across the Martian surface in geometric patterns. Each pulse lasted approximately 3.7 seconds and covered a strip of terrain 200 kilometers wide. Over the course of 12 hours, Atlas completed a full mapping survey of the entire planet. A planetary geologist analyzing the scan patterns described what they're seeing. This is high-resolution ground-penetrating radar, but operating at power levels and frequencies we've never achieved. The pulses are penetrating kilometers into the Martian crust, mapping subsurface structures, water deposits, and geological formations with incredible precision. Whoever built this wanted a complete picture of what's beneath Mars's surface. But the scanning wasn't random reconnaissance. Atlas focused particular attention on specific regions, areas that happen to coincide with locations that have puzzled scientists for decades. The Cydonia region, famous for the Face on Mars formation that turned out to be a natural mesa, received intense scrutiny. So did Valles Marineris, the massive canyon system that dwarfs Earth's Grand Canyon, and most intriguingly, areas where ground-penetrating radar from NASA's SHARAD instrument had detected what might be ancient lake beds or subsurface ice deposits. A Mars exploration specialist noted the implications. It's almost like Atlas knows exactly where to look. These aren't random survey patterns. They're targeted investigations of the most geologically and historically significant features on Mars. Either they've studied our research data, or they know something about Mars's past that we don't. The Perseverance and Curiosity rovers both detected unusual phenomena during ATLAS's overhead passes. Electromagnetic interference disrupted communications for brief periods. Instrument readings showed anomalous magnetic field fluctuations, and both rovers' cameras captured strange atmospheric disturbances, shimmering effects in the thin Martian air that suggested some kind of energy beam passing through. Most disturbing of all, Atlas appeared particularly interested in the regions where we've sent our most advanced equipment. The Jezero crater, where Perseverance is searching for signs of ancient microbial life, received 3 separate detailed scans. It's as if Atlas was checking to see what we've found, or making sure we haven't discovered something they don't want us to know about. The orbital insertion maneuver itself raised questions. Atlas positioned itself at exactly 12,000 miles altitude, high enough to avoid atmospheric drag, but low enough for detailed observation. That specific altitude isn't random. It's the optimal position for maximum surface coverage while maintaining stable orbit. It's exactly where you'd position a reconnaissance satellite if you wanted the best possible intelligence gathering capability. Then Atlas did something that has turned scientific curiosity into genuine alarm. It began releasing objects toward the Martian surface. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter captured the first deployment, a small object roughly 10 meters across, separating from Atlas and descending toward Mars on a controlled trajectory. Then another and another. Over a 48-hour period, Atlas released at least 23 distinct objects, each following precisely calculated descent paths towards specific locations on the surface. A planetary defense specialist described the nightmare scenario. We're watching what looks like a military deployment. These aren't random debris or jettisoned fuel tanks. Each object follows a ballistic trajectory designed to reach a specific ground target. This is the pattern you'd see during an orbital bombardment or a landing operation. Tracking data shows the objects decelerated during descent, another impossibility for inert debris. They used some form of atmospheric braking combined with active thrust control to slow their approach, eventually impacting or landing at velocities gentle enough to keep them intact. The impact sites are spread across Mars but show a definite pattern. Several landed near the polar ice caps. Others touched down in regions with suspected subsurface water deposits. 3 landed within 50 kilometers of Perseverance's current location. One appeared to target the Valles Marineris Canyon system directly. NASA's satellite network attempted to track the objects after landing, but here's where things get truly unsettling. The objects vanished from sensors shortly after touching down, not destroyed, vanished. Thermal signatures disappeared. Radar returns ceased. It's as if they buried themselves or activated some form of stealth technology. A remote sensing specialist explained the technical impossibility. Our Mars orbiters use multiple detection methods: infrared, visible light, radar, spectrographic analysis. For an object to disappear from all of them simultaneously means it's either been destroyed so completely that no trace remains, or it's using technology to actively defeat our sensors. Given the controlled descent we observed, destruction seems unlikely. One object landed within visual range of the Curiosity rover. Mission controllers immediately redirected the rover toward the landing site, hoping to get imagery of whatever ATLAS deployed. The rover covered 3 kilometers over 2 days, but when it reached the coordinates where the object should have been, there was nothing. No crater, no debris, no disturbance of the Martian soil. Either NASA's trajectory calculations were wrong, unlikely given the precision of modern tracking, or the object moved after landing. Both options are deeply troubling. The thing nobody tells you is that Mars now hosts technology we didn't put there and can't see. At least 23 objects of unknown purpose and capability are now deployed across the Martian surface, possibly transmitting data back to Atlas, possibly performing functions we can't even imagine. While Atlas maintained its orbit around Mars, NASA made a decision that has sparked intense debate. They attempted direct communication. The Deep Space Network, NASA's array of massive radio telescopes used for communicating with distant spacecraft, was redirected to transmit toward Atlas. The message was simple: mathematical sequences, prime numbers, and basic geometric proofs designed to demonstrate intelligence without requiring shared language. A SETI researcher involved in crafting the message described the approach. We used the same principles developed for messages to extraterrestrial intelligence, but this time we knew something was listening. The question wasn't whether anyone would receive it, it was whether they'd choose to respond. For 36 hours, there was no response. NASA repeated the transmission at different frequencies and power levels. Still nothing. Some scientists argued that Atlas either couldn't detect the signals, wasn't interested in communication, or was deliberately ignoring Earth's attempts to make contact. Then everything changed. Atlas suddenly altered its electromagnetic emissions. Instead of the mathematical constants and geometrical patterns it had been broadcasting since entering the solar system, the signals shifted to something new. They began incorporating elements from NASA's transmission, not echoing them exactly, completing them, expanding them, demonstrating mathematical concepts more advanced than the ones Earth had sent. A cryptographer, analyzing the response, described it as both encouraging and terrifying. They're not just acknowledging our message, they're testing us. Each response includes mathematical problems progressively more complex than what we sent. It's like they're administering an intelligence test, seeing how sophisticated our understanding really is. But the communication wasn't limited to mathematics. Some of the returned signals appeared to contain encoded imagery, complex patterns that, when processed through various decoding algorithms, might represent visual information. One research team successfully decoded what appeared to be a 3-dimensional map. Not of our solar system, of another star system entirely, possibly their point of origin. The map showed orbital positions, planetary masses, and what might be structures in orbit around one of the planets. If authentic, this would represent the first direct communication of extraterrestrial geographic information. Another decoded sequence showed something that caused significant alarm, what appeared to be a biological diagram. Molecular structures that looked like DNA, but with additional base pairs and complexity levels beyond anything in Earth biology. Either they were showing us what they're made of, or they were showing us something they found on Mars, ancient Martian life that evolved differently from Earth organisms. The most controversial decoded message appeared to show Earth itself, accurate maps of continents, oceans, and disturbingly, what looked like marked locations on the surface, Cities? Strategic sites? Targets? Nobody knows for sure, but the implication that Atlas has been studying Earth in detail while ostensibly focused on Mars is deeply unsettling. Atlas's intense interest in Mars raises profound questions about what makes this planet special, and reviewing Mars's history suggests some disturbing possibilities about what ATLAS might be looking for. Mars once had liquid water on its surface, rivers, lakes, possibly even oceans, covering significant portions of the planet. The geological evidence is undeniable. Something happened approximately 3.7 billion years ago that stripped away most of Mars's atmosphere and turned it into the cold, dry desert world we see today. A planetary scientist specializing in Mars research explained the significance. If Mars had liquid water for hundreds of millions of years, it could have developed life. Simple microbial life at minimum, possibly more complex organisms. The question that's haunted Mars exploration for decades is, what happened to it? Did it die out when the water vanished, or did it adapt, going underground where water still exists? Atlas's scanning patterns focused heavily on regions where subsurface water has been detected. The Utopia Planitia region, where radar has detected what might be massive underground ice deposits. The polar caps where water ice is confirmed to exist. The ancient valley networks that once carried rivers across the Martian surface. It's as if Atlas is looking for something specific, biological traces perhaps, or evidence of what happened to Mars's biosphere. Or maybe something even more alarming, survivors. Recent discoveries have shown that microbial life on Earth can survive in incredibly extreme conditions. Deep underground, in boiling hot springs, even in the vacuum of space for short periods. If life emerged on ancient Mars, some of it might have adapted to survive in underground aquifers or deep within the crust. Our astrobiologist raised an unsettling possibility. What if ATLAS didn't come here to study a dead planet? What if Mars still has life, deep underground, where our rovers can't reach? Those objects Atlas deployed could be drilling probes designed to reach subsurface environments and make contact with whatever might still exist there. But there's an even more dramatic theory. What if Mars was once home to a technological civilization? Not recently, billions of years ago, before whatever catastrophe stripped the atmosphere away. Any surface structures would have been eroded to dust by now, but deep underground facilities might still exist, buried and forgotten. The mathematical signals Atlas has been broadcasting include sequences that some researchers believe might be coordinate systems, not for navigation in space, but for locations on Mars itself. Specific latitude and longitude coordinates that correspond to regions of geological interest. One set of coordinates points to a location in the Hellas Basin, a massive impact crater that's the deepest point on Mars. Ground-penetrating radar from orbit has detected unusual geometric structures beneath the crater floor, formations that some researchers argue look too regular to be entirely natural. Another coordinate set points to the Olympus Mons region, the largest volcano in the solar system. Thermal imaging has detected anomalous heat signatures deep within the volcanic structure, sources of warmth that can't be explained by residual volcanic activity alone. The thing nobody tells you is that Mars might not be just a dead world with interesting geology. It might be a graveyard holding secrets that someone or something desperately wants to uncover. While Atlas remains in orbit around Mars, its implications for Earth are growing more concerning by the day. Because whatever Atlas is doing at Mars, Earth appears to be next on the itinerary. Trajectory analysis shows that ATLAS's current orbit around Mars is temporary. The positioning is perfect for a gravity assist maneuver using Mars's gravity to modify trajectory while conserving fuel. Based on current orbital parameters, ATLAS could leave Mars orbit and reach Earth within 6 weeks with minimal additional thrust. A JPL orbital mechanics specialist described the trajectory. The orbit Atlas chose isn't random. It's a staging position. From there, they could launch toward Earth with optimal energy efficiency, arriving at Earth with enough velocity control to perform another insertion maneuver if desired. They've essentially turned Mars into a refueling stop on the way to Earth. The objects deployed on Mars add another layer of concern. If those are monitoring stations or communication relays, ATLAS has just established a permanent presence in our solar system. Even if the main object leaves, those deployed assets remain, continuing whatever mission they were designed for. Military space surveillance networks are tracking Atlas around the clock, and recent observations show preparation activities. The object's rotation rate has changed. It's orienting itself into a specific alignment. Power generation signatures have increased, and those mysterious escort objects that have been shadowing ATLAS throughout its journey are repositioning into a new formation. A defense analyst described the pattern. Everything we're seeing suggests Atlas is preparing for the next phase of operations. They've completed their Mars survey, deployed their assets, and now they're getting ready to move. Based on the escort positioning and power signatures, that move is going to happen soon. But here's what really has defense planners losing sleep. Atlas has now demonstrated capabilities that far exceed anything in Earth's military arsenal. Propulsion systems that can stop interstellar objects on a dime. Sensors that can map an entire planet in hours. Deployment capabilities that can place assets anywhere on a planetary surface with pinpoint accuracy. If those capabilities are turned toward Earth with hostile intent, we have no defense. Our most advanced anti-satellite weapons couldn't touch an object moving at the velocities Atlas can achieve. Our tracking systems barely kept up with the Mars insertion maneuver. And if they choose to deploy objects on Earth the way they did on Mars, we couldn't stop them. A former Pentagon strategic analyst put it bluntly, Atlas has effectively demonstrated air superiority or space superiority over anything humanity can field. Whether they're hostile or not, they've made it clear that if this becomes a confrontation, we lose. Our only hope is that confrontation isn't what they want. The question becomes, what do they want? The Mars mission suggests scientific interest, possibly archaeological investigation of a dead or dying world. But the capabilities demonstrated suggest military readiness. Are they explorers or conquerors? Scientists or scouts? And how will they view Earth compared to Mars as another fascinating ruin to study or as a living world worth preserving or exploiting? Recent developments suggest that ATLAS's departure from Mars orbit is imminent, and every space agency on Earth is scrambling to prepare for what comes next. Electromagnetic emissions from Atlas have intensified over the past 48 hours. The mathematical broadcasts have been replaced by complex signal patterns that appear to be communication between ATLAS and the objects deployed on Mars. Whatever data those surface assets collected is being transmitted back to the main object, possibly to inform decisions about the next destination. Several of the Martian orbiters have detected what appears to be pre-burn preparations. Thermal signatures from ATLAS's propulsion systems are increasing. The object has adjusted its orientation to an alignment that would be optimal for a trajectory toward Earth. All signs point to imminent departure. A NASA mission controller described what they're seeing. Atlas is wrapping up operations at Mars. The scanning has stopped. The deployments are complete. They're in the final checklist phase before leaving orbit. Based on historical patterns of their behavior, we estimate they'll initiate their Earth-bound trajectory within the next 72 to 96 hours. This timeline means Atlas could arrive at Earth in approximately 6 weeks, possibly less if they're willing to expend more energy on the transfer. That's not much time to prepare for first contact with a technology that's proven itself vastly superior to anything we possess. International space agencies are coordinating response plans through classified channels. Emergency protocols are being updated. Communication strategies are being developed. And military forces worldwide are positioning assets for scenarios ranging from peaceful contact to defensive engagement. But there's also a humanitarian perspective that's being discussed behind closed doors. If Atlas represents an advanced civilization willing to share knowledge, the benefits could be transformative. Solutions to climate change, clean energy technology, medical advances that could eliminate disease. The potential upside is as dramatic as the potential threat. A scientific advisor to the UN described the impossible calculus: "We're simultaneously preparing for first contact diplomacy and defensive warfare. We're drafting welcome messages while also finalizing contingency plans for mass evacuation. We're hoping for the best while preparing for the worst, knowing that whichever we get, humanity will never be the same." Amateur astronomers worldwide are being asked to maintain observations and report any unusual activity. Scientists are reviewing every frame of data from the Mars encounter, looking for clues about intentions, capabilities, and potential vulnerabilities. And every major observatory on Earth and in orbit is being repositioned to provide maximum coverage of ATLAS's expected approach trajectory. The thing nobody tells you is that we're already committed to this path. Atlas knows we're here. The communication attempts made that certain. They've mapped our planet from a distance. They've demonstrated their technological superiority. Now they're coming to Earth, and we have no choice but to wait and see what happens when they arrive. Looking back at everything that happened during Atlas's Mars encounter, a disturbing theory is emerging among researchers. Mars wasn't the primary target. It was a test. Think about the sequence of events. Atlas approached Mars with enough velocity to pass by and continue to Earth. Instead, it stopped, performed an intensive survey, deployed monitoring assets, and demonstrated capabilities that vastly exceed human technology. The entire operation was executed with precision that suggests careful planning and clear objectives.